Hey, what's going on there, guys? Nick here from Absolute MTG, and welcome back to another deck tech here on the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at a modern deck. So it is March of 2016 right now. Shadows over Innistrad has not yet come out at the time of the recording of this video, so we are working with cards up to Oath of the Gatewatch here. So the entire deck list for this deck is in the description below, where you guys can take a look at it, use it as a reference, and whatnot. But we are taking a look at 5-color Bring to Light today. So this is a Scapeshift deck. So this is basically a Scapeshift combo deck that plays a lot of cool, spicy, like one of weird things in here that we get to play just because we're playing like a weird 5-color deck. And basically to kind of get you guys familiarized with Scapeshift, basically what you're doing with Scapeshift is you're putting a bunch of lands into play, and you're basically going to build it up to the point where you have 7 lands. Usually 7 lands is enough to be able to use Scapeshift, sacrifice 7 lands, search for a Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, and 6 other mountains of some sort that we have scattered through here in our actual land base that we're playing. And with that, we get 6 triggers of deal 3 damage off of Valakut to deal 18 damage, which is most times in the modern format enough to actually kill somebody. So basically it is resolve a Scapeshift with 7 lands, go for Valakut, and just smash them. If we have 8 lands, we can search for 2 Valakuts and 6 mountains, and then just smash them from there. But that's basically like the whole Scapeshift point of this deck. Is it's just very, very narrow. We don't want to put way too many mountains onto the battlefield already. We don't want to completely deplete our deck of mountains and make it so that we can't just win with a 4 CMC card. But otherwise, we do get to play Bring to Light in this deck, which basically makes it like we're playing 7 copies of Scapeshift here. So we have 3 actual copies of Scapeshift and 4 Bring to Lights in this deck, which kind of seems like a weird way to be breaking it down, because normally you'd think like, well, a Scapeshift combo deck is going to be playing 4 Scapeshifts. But actually, with this deck and how slow it actually plays out, we are able to piece together a good strategy and good game plan to pretty much undo what our opponent's doing and kind of slow them down or stop them, whether they're playing like a Malaria combo and we have an Anger of the Gods or something like that, whether they're just playing dudes and we have Supreme Verdict. We can slow them down or stop them from doing what they want to do. We dirtle a whole bunch, and then we have Bring to Light to either stop them when we can't actually go for the Scapeshift for the win, or actually use Bring to Light to find Scapeshift and then just win by casting it for free from Exile. So the land base is kind of specific for what we want. Like we have a Singleton, Overgrown Tomb, Breeding Pool, Hallowed Fountain. We have 4 Stomping Grounds, 4 Steam Vents for our dual subtype mountains, 2 other regular mountains, and a Cinder Glade for a additional mountain with a dual subtype. Our basics are broken down into 1 plains, 1 forest, 2 islands, and 2 mountains here. And otherwise, we have 4 fetch lands that are 4 Misty Rainforest that will fetch any of our Shocklands for us to give us some appropriate mana here. So for the actual cards of the deck, it's sweet in this deck because we get to basically play Domain to make our Worldly Counsel amazing. So we naturally have the ability to play white cards in here as well. So we get to play Path to Exile, which is amazing because it just deals with a bunch of creatures in the format. I'm playing a Singleton Quicken, which Quicken's actually just such an awkward card because normally you're like, well, Quicken's like just kind of a weird like EDH type card that you would only play in that type of a format. But it's actually pretty sweet in this deck because with Quicken you can cast Anger of the Gods at instant speed, and you can cast things like Scapeshift during your opponent's turn, especially if you have 2 of them and your opponent's playing counter magic. You can cast one during their turn, force them to use counter magic, and then resolve another one during your turn when you are able to just have your opponent tapped out, which is awesome. But the other sweet thing about this deck is that it plays All Sun's Dawn. So because we are playing basically 5 colors in here, predominantly 4 colors, with All Sun's Dawn, for each color we can return 1 card of that color from our graveyard to our hand and then exile All Sun's Dawn. And with Quicken, it costs 6 mana, but if we're just dirtling around, we get back a whole stack of free stuff. So Quicken's actually pretty cool. It cantrips, so it's always awesome to be able to cycle that into something that we would normally do at sorcery speed. Even like a Maelstrom Pulse is just insane at instant speed. For the counter magic in the deck, we're playing 2 Mana Leaks and 4 Remands to accelerate us along. We have one Snapcaster Mage. There's no real need to play like 2, 3, 4 copies of this guy. Snapcaster Mage is just perfectly fine in this deck as a 1-up for us. We don't really want to be casting back like the majority of the stuff that we're doing here. Like a Bring to Light, if it resolves, is just going to win us the game anyway. And if our opponent counters it, chances are we're probably going to have a very easy setup to just cast another one or like have a Scape Shift or something back up anyway. The Snapcaster Mage is just good at like allowing us to recast remands, mana leaks, things of that nature, even like Path Exiles, just the smaller stuff to just kind of get us to the point where we deplete our opponent of their resources. So just one singleton Snapcaster, you don't need very many in the deck. We're playing 2 Worldly Counsel, which is a better impulse for us. Usually it's going to be an impulse, but otherwise, the Worldly Counsel is insane whenever we have Domain for 5, so if we have all of the basic land types, or I guess 5 of the 6 basic land types, because we do have Waste as well, but that doesn't matter. With Domain, it's insane just because we look at the top 5, if we have all of them assembled as Voltron, and we get to put one of those cards into our hand, the rest of the bottom of our library in any order, we can find pieces like the Bring to the Light, or like a Scape Shift to be able to actually cast and win the game. Otherwise, if we need removal in a spot, we can find like a Path to Exile to be able to use, or a Supreme Verdict for the following turn. Or it even just lets us find a counterspell if we're actually trying to be proactive. So either way, the Worldly Counsel is awesome at letting you dig. It's like a mini dig through time, but like much significantly worse. But either way, Worldly Counsel is pretty cool. We have 4 Sakura-Tribe Elders. I was messing around with the numbers in this deck. We're playing only 3 Search for Tomorrows as opposed to 4, where normal decks would play 4 of them. But 4 Sakura-Tribe Elders, 3 Search for Tomorrows for ramping. You sack the Sakura-Tribe Elder, and then you're able to search for a basic land card and put it into the battlefield tapped. We have 2 Izzet Charms for either looting. We can draw 2, discard 2, deal 2 damage to a creature, or we can make our opponent Spell Pierce. So we counter a non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2 mana, which all of the modes are pretty relevant, and it just depends on the matchup. This card sides out a lot, but it's still really good in the main board, especially for the counter spell mode on it, or the Spell Pierce mode, rather. But we do have the one Anger of the Gods, which I went over. Anger of the Gods is just good, especially if we can fetch it off of Bring to Light if we need it against like a combo deck, if we know what they're playing, like especially Leer. Leer is really good right now. We have the 3 Search for Tomorrow, so again, more ramp. We can suspend it on turn 1, and after 2 turns, we get to resolve it and search for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield. We have the 1 singleton Maelstrom Pulse, so it's part of our reason to splash black. We're able to play this in the main board. Otherwise, we have things like Rakdos Charm in the sideboard and Slaughter Games as well. Maelstrom Pulse is just really good. It deals with a lot of things. If we have to deal with a Karn or something like that, Planeswalkers are kind of troublesome if you don't have the counterspell immediately. Otherwise, we do have some Cryptics. We're playing 3 Cryptic Commands in here, which aren't all that difficult to actually cast, especially if we have some fetching with our mana fixing. But the Cryptic Command is just amazing in this type of a deck where we're able to stop our opponent from what they're doing, especially super late game when we have a bunch of mana open. The Scape Shift, which is the combo piece. 1 singleton Supreme Verdict for Wrath. 1 All Sun's Dawn for super heavy attrition. If you're playing against like very aggressive decks, this card just sides out. I'm just more prone to playing against super grindy, attrition-based matchups where I would have to trudge through Thoughtseizes and cards of that nature, so the All Sun's Dawn ends up being really good for that. And otherwise, like, this card just sides out for one of the other various cards in the sideboard that we have that is just a little bit better for you whenever you're trying to be a little bit faster with what you're doing, or a little bit more responsive earlier. And then the 4 Bring to Lights, which will find us like basically anything in our deck that we really want to actually cast at any given moment to be able to either stop our opponent or be proactive and actually win the game. So, Scape Shift, how do you win? If your opponent's at 18, you have 7 lands on the battlefield, you resolve Scape Shift, sacrifice the 7 lands, find a Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, and 6 mountains, and you just hit them for 18 exactly. So, now for the sideboard to actually talk about the cards that we have here. We have another Path to Exile to max out our 4. So some of the matchups, like if you're playing against Eldrazi right now, Path to Exile is really good, especially like combo decks too. Again, I mentioned Leer. It's a big thing right now at the current time. So being able to Path to Exile and break apart their combo is quite good. We have a Spellskite. So Spellskite's good in a variety of different matchups. It's good in Affinity just because you get to break apart Arcbound Ravager. But there's a lot of other things, like if you play against Boggles, it's good against them. It's good against Infect as well. you can stop them from using their pump spells and whatnot. So Spellskite has a lot of different various implications. The more you play and the more you get into noticing cards that your opponent is very dependent on them resolving on specific targets, Spellskite becomes quite good, and you start to side that card more often. But there are numerous implications where Spellskite's actually good. Negate, just for any matchup where your opponent's playing a bunch of non-creature spells, especially the like the control or heavy mid-range type decks. If they're more leaning towards control or mid-range, Negate ends up being really good. We don't really have to worry about Splinter Twin anymore because that card's banned, so it really just ends up being like the blue-white-red, either tempo, control, combo, Kiki decks, things of that nature. There are just a lot of decks where Negate's good as well. We have a singleton Unravel the AEther, again, a variety of decks, like Blue Moon, things of that nature. If they're playing Keranos, it's good against Affinity, it's good against Boggles as well, even though it's not all that prevalent right now. Unravel, again, it has a lot of implications, it just depends on what your opponent's playing, and it sideboards quite easily against those decks for those named problematic cards, or otherwise, like the problematic archetypes that you would run into that are very dependent on artifacts or enchantments. We have a Rakdos Charm, so it's good against Affinity, good against Graveyard Hate for like Living End, and otherwise, well, we don't really have to worry about it now with Splinter Twin anymore. This was an out to Splinter Twin. If your opponent makes just like infinite dudes, you can hit them for infinite damage for however many guys they actually made. But otherwise, this card's pretty much just limited to Affinity and also Instant Speed Graveyard Hate. That's what I use it for the most. We have two more Anger of the Gods for the smaller creature matchups, and Melira. Any of the matchups like tokens, if you run into that. It's also pretty good against Merfolk, assuming that they don't develop a massive board. Supreme Verdict's much better at taking care of Merfolk, but Anger of the Gods is still pretty good in the early game if you're able to unpiece like one of their lords, keep all of the guys in X3 range, and then just anger and wipe away everything away from them. Especially combined with some Path Exiles, you can really just butcher their entire board state pretty easily. We have two Counterflux, so against any of the decks that are playing Counter Magic, Counterflux is amazing, especially any like combo decks or anything like that. If your opponent is trying to piece together combo and just work from there, Counterflux is quite good at allowing you to stop your opponent and they can't really do anything about it. So Counterflux is amazing against combo decks and Counter Magic. One Crumble to Dust against like Tron, basically. That's honestly the only time I really side in Crumble to Dust. You can side it in against the Scapeshift Mirror as well, but I don't find myself playing against Scapeshift all that often. Crumble to Dust is just great because if they happen to naturally just play their Valakut earlier on, you can Crumble to Dust and get rid of their land. Or you can otherwise use Crumble to Dust to get rid of like their Stomping Grounds or their Steam Vents from their deck as well. Especially in the early game, resolving a Crumble to Dust against a Scapeshift player is actually pretty good. But if they happen to play their Valakut early, you can actually just make them basically like lose the game because they won't have a very good way to actually win the game if they don't side in other threats. One Creeping Corrosion basically for the Affinity matchup. It's also good against the Lantern Control deck as well. However, they can manipulate the top of your deck too, which is kind of awkward. But if you happen to find yourself playing against the Lantern matchup, Creeping Corrosion is good against them too, but this is mainly just for Affinity, so they don't like kind of poop sneak you and just put a bunch of artifacts onto the board before you can actually deal with them or have a good way to like Supreme Verdict or Anger of the Gods or anything against them. So Creeping Corrosion is just like your one solid sweep out against that deck, and you can also Bring the Light for it, so that's awesome. I mean, that's like the upside with Bring the Light. It's like a lot of these cards, you can just find it with Bring the Light, and you can just smash your opponent with that. So Creeping Corrosion is amazing. We have two Obstinate Baloths and one Thragtusk for gaining life. Obstinate Baloth has the upside of if you play against Liliana decks, so if your opponent resolves a Liliana of the Veil, they uptick it and force you to discard. You can discard Obstinate Baloth, get it for free, gain 4 life, and have a 4/4 on board for free. So that's amazing, and your opponent had to discard as well. So the Obstinate Baloth is just amazing for like the junk matchups. Gaining life is awesome against like Burn and anything like that, so you want to side that in against Burn and any super grindy aggressive decks like Naya Zoo, things of that nature. Same thing goes with Thragtusk. Thragtusk is not as good against the Jund matchup. It's still pretty okay, but if you're dealing with your opponent playing Liliana and like it's the only thing in your hand, then that thing's going away bye-byes and you really don't get it back. But Thragtusk hitting the board, gaining you 5, or Obstinate Baloth gaining you 4 is really awesome whenever you're trying to grind out somebody. And both of these cards are actually still pretty good, even though the Thragtusk doesn't have anything for it being discarded. it's still pretty good against the Jund and Junk matchups where you resolve it, they have removal, and you still retain a 3/3 out of it if they kill it. And last but not least, the Slaughter Games. The last card to mention here. So against any linear decks that have a B, C type plan of what they're actually trying to do for combo, you can unpiece their combo by getting rid of their key point cards, whether it's playing against the Ad Nauseam deck, if you're playing against like Tron, you can get rid of like some of their good cards, you can get rid of their Karns, or it really just depends on like what stage in the game you're at. Slaughter Games can like get rid of some stuff. You can play it against Scapeshift, get rid of their actual Scapeshifts from their deck. There's just a variety of different implications. Again, all of these cards are pretty versatile for what you actually want to be using them for, but Slaughter Games, especially for combo-based decks, you just completely murder them. So the Slaughter Games is just awesome in a lot of different instances, and especially if your opponent's relying on like one or two key cards to actually go around and do something in the game, especially with decks like Living End. You know, your opponent's main goal is to dump a bunch of things into the grave and then use Living End to get them back. You cast a Slaughter Games on turn 4, or even if like you ramp into it earlier, like on turn 3, cast a Slaughter Games and then just take away your opponent's actual win condition and force them to basically just kind of scoop after a couple of turns when they realize they can't do anything, or immediately otherwise. But yeah, that is 5-color Scapeshift, 5-color Bring to Light, or as my friends like to call it, 5-color Poverty Shift, because they think this is a much more kind of budget-ish way to approach this type of a deck, and that is what we have called it amongst ourselves as a joke with one of our friends, Chris. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck tech. The entire deck list is down below where you guys can check it out, use it as a reference. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Magic the Gathering content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching again, and peace out.